welcome to my channel. Thanks for clicking on my video. Today we're going to be going over something a little bit different. Now it's not a Meta Dragon Knight or a Mag Blade or a Stam Arcanist, right? It's none of that. This is a Magicka Warden, a Magden. I feel like nobody plays this anymore. It's a dime a dozen. It used to be really good once upon a time, and I think we just made Magden great again. So let's just go ahead and get into it. We're gonna go jump right into the sets that we're wearing, and right after that we'll do some stats showing off, and after that CP, vamp stage, food, Mundus, all that fun shit. Stick around. Let's get right into the gear sets. So we are rocking on our front bar Master's Ice Staff, okay? Scroll down, here's what it does. I don't have the perfected version, sue me. Perfected version is even better. You get more crit chance from it, I believe. And this is a crit build. Absorb Magicka enchantment is great just for a little bit of additional mag sustain. Shock enchantment is not necessary because we're getting minor vulnerability from the growing swarm skill. You could use that if you swap that skill out for something else. I don't use an enchantment at all. I use double dot poisons. They fucking slam people. They go crazy. Backbar, we are using Wretched Vitality. We're on a sword board. I would change the sword enchant to a absorb stamina. So when you're heavy attacking, you get just a tiny little bit more stam back. I never really have to heavy attack for stam. The sustain on this build is insane. You're going to want this in defending. Scroll down real quick so you can see what Wretched Vitality does. And we're going to have a sturdy sword. You can have any enchant on this. I just like health. If you decide to run Polar Wind over Arctic Blast like I'm running in this build, Polar Wind will benefit from having the additional health on your back bar. Just something small to note. Going into our body pieces, we are not wearing a monster helmet on this build. We are wearing a one-piece Magma Incarnate on our shoulders, simply for the recoveries on the one piece. If you couldn't tell, I love recovery in my builds. I love fighting outnumbered. I love being that little rat that 3 people can't kill. Anyway, we have a medium Wretched Vitality helmet in Impen. Impen is very important this patch. Everyone is building crit, and it hits like a fucking bus, and this build is a perfect example of it. Then we have a heavy Cuirass of the Order's Wrath. Now this is our bread and fucking butter to this build right here. Again, we have it in Impen. I have a health enchantment on it because I'm a bot. Scroll down, here's what it does. A ton of crit chance and weapon and spell damage, and increase your damage and critical healing by 8%. This is going to be a heavy chest, one of our 2 heavy pieces on this build. Our Magma Incarnate shoulder is medium. Sash of Order's Wrath, which is light and well fitted. I would totally change this to Impen. All Impen, no well fitted, heavy pieces reinforced every time. Even this chest is actually impenetrable, which is wrong. It should be reinforced. Anyway, Gloves of the Order's Wrath in light. This should also be impenetrable. Order's Wrath Greaves with Tri-Stat enchant and reinforced. That's correct. I'm actually going to go transmute this chest. I've been playing with it Impen for the last 4 or 5 days since I made this build, and it's actually been working fantastic. And sometimes I'll swap out to these light legs. They have a health enchant rather than the tri-stat. You end up having the same health as the heavy armor, just a little bit less resistance. You have higher pen, more crit chance. You know, you just hit a little bit harder. If you're, you know, looking for that sweaty 1v1 maybe, it's a good time to put on a, you know, just keep on the 1 heavy chest and have the 4 light with 2 medium. But right now, we're 3 light, 2 medium, 2 heavy. And on our... Sorry, I missed the boots. Light boots of Order's Wrath. Also health enchant because I'm a bot. Impen, you know how it goes. On our jewelry, we've got the infused Wretched Vitality. We've got Bloodthirsty Wretched Vitality, and we have a Swift Markyn Ring of Majesty. Now, Markyn Ring is the only mythic I have, and it's because I swear, by God, it is the best mythic in this game. There's no proc condition, you get 200 weapon and spell damage, 2300 armor all the time. I don't know the math on that, but that's like 4 or 5% damage mitigation just out of resistances for having this equipped. And you get extra weapon and spell damage, which we are stacking in this build on top of critical chance and damage. So, let's get into the rest of the shit. Show off some stats real quick. Fully buff up defensively, minor resolve, major resolve. Look at our character sheet. We're at 32,000 spell and 30,000 physical, so we are fucking beefy. Okay, we're beefy as fuck on this build. And if you switch over to the light armor legs like I was showing you earlier, just so you guys don't have to try it out for yourselves and guess, make sure we're buffed. We're at 31,000 spell, 28,000 physical. Now this would not be achievable without Markyn Ring of Majesty and the fortified champion point. We'll be going over champion points shortly. Now fully buffed on our front bar, we look like a bunch of fucking weenies. We're at 4,100 weapon damage, 37% crit chance, which is huge. 7k penetration, which is fine. Our Deep Fissure is gonna debuff them for about 9,000 resistance. So you can add that on top of our penetration. Another option, we'll go over the CP to add a little bit more penetration to your build if you'd like that option. But basically, what you do to fully buff, make sure your Nedge is up, and you just Master's Ice Staff. Now we look at it, and we're at 5,000 spell damage. And the reason that this build actually hits very hard, because that is not high weapon and spell damage. It's actually very low for any other build. Now the reason that hits hard is because of our Warden's passives, I believe. Yes, here we go. Piercing Cold under Winter's Embrace. Increase your damage done by 2%, which increases to 12% when wielding an Ice Staff. Now, if maybe you're newer to PvP or ESO in general, you're not familiar with the way damage works and things, but percent damage in this game, and also percent mitigation, are the best ways to get damage and mitigation through pure, sheer percentages. So now that we have that covered, we've got 12% more damage with our Ice Staff, okay? Order's Wrath gives us 8% more critical damage. We go to our advanced stats. We're sitting at 43% critical damage, and look at my tail. I'm an Argonian, dude. If you're a Khajiit, you're sitting at 55% critical damage. So, look at this. That 7k I just hit on that Thrall with the Ice Reach, that would literally double because of the base 50% crit damage on top of our 55%. We're doing 105% critical damage with this build, and the pressure is insane. Obviously you guys saw the clip at the beginning. It's fucking crazy. Look at all these dots we're putting on this guy, and it's a range build. And you got big bursts with the Dawnbreaker Deep Fissure. Wappa! Things just fold, man. And another dot that is added in is Arctic Blast here. I'm kind of jumping the gun. I'm talking about the skills we have equipped. I'll go over all that. I just want you guys to know why we're doing what we're doing. Arctic Blast is an AoE dot, as well as your burst heal and a delayed stun. Okay, it's kind of stacked, but as you can see by reading this skill, dealing so-and-so frost damage every 2 seconds. So that's going to tick on the players around you, and it's active for 20 seconds, that AoE dot. You'll see it pulsing here. I'll demonstrate on this dummy here. Boom. Okay, so that has a high chance to apply the chilled status effect, which applies minor brittle, which is another additional 10% critical damage. It's crazy how much crit we're stacking. Growing Swarm is minor vulnerability. Guess what? 5% additional damage. So we're out here, we're doing fat damage. Let's go over food, Sugar Skulls, Mundus, the Shadow. Gotta have the Shadow. It's crit damage. And we have Stage 3 Vampire. That's what I was looking for. Sorry, I had a fucking brain fart. Let's go over our bar setups. Back bar, Resolving Vigor. This is our heal over time and gives us Minor Resolve. You want to make sure Minor Resolve is up all the fucking time. Even if you're just walking around, standing on the porch of a keep, make sure Resolving Vigor and Ice Fortress are always up. That's 9,000 extra resistance that people have to penetrate through to hit you for their maximum numbers, okay? It's huge. Always, in PvP, always act like there's a fucking Nightblade around ready to fucking just one-tap you, okay? That's how you want to play it. So Resolving Vigor, one of our armor buffs. Arctic Blast, we went over that a little bit. Burst Heal, AoE Dot, fucking Delayed Stun. It's stacked. Okay, Ice Fortress, it's your major resolve skill for 30 seconds. It's pretty expensive and you gain minor protection. Here we go again, talking about percentages. That's percent mitigation. It's one of the best ways to get tanky. Leeching Vines. There's a few options. This is kind of your flex spot on your back bar. You could also use Crystallized Slab, which will reflect damage from projectiles back at the attackers, and it will actually stun them and do a small amount of frost damage, potentially proccing brittle on them for harder hits, like those annoying little bow snipers in the background or the fucking mag sorks. You could also do something like, if you want just like a set and forget, Revealing Flare is good there. It's a major protection. When you're on your back bar, you get an additional 10% damage mitigation. And you could also do the old Budding Seeds. It's a decent heal over time to put on the floor. It's a great synergy when your allies synergize it. So if you're playing in a group, Budding Seeds is very good. And you can also proc it early for, activate it early for a big burst heal there that you see at the bottom. Sorry, at the top here. 10.3k burst heal. Which is halved in PvP, but it's still huge with all of our crit damage and crit healing that's hitting like a bus. But the reason we use Leeching Vines over Living Trellis, I want to talk about this for a moment. Living Trellis gives you a little bit of a burst heal at the end of the vine duration. Okay, so even if you reactivate it, it'll pop and it'll burst heal you just a tiny bit. It's I think it's like the tooltip is like 6k or something, which ends up being halved in PvP. It's not bad, but Leeching Vines on a build like this, you're doing constant damage. You have that AoE dot from Arctic Blast. You have the AoE dot from Growing Swarm hitting a ton of enemies. Now if we read this, Vines apply minor lifesteal to enemies that damage the target for 10 seconds, healing you and your allies for 708 health every 1 second when damaging that enemy. While that health is not a ton, overall, the amount of healing that we're getting, because this can proc off hitting multiple enemies. If multiple enemies are hitting you and hit by minor lifesteal while you have the vines on you, and your AoE dots are ticking, you can get multiple ticks of that heal, if that makes any sense. And it actually results in more healing on a dot build like this one than Living Trellis does. This is also true for other Warden builds, like say if you're a Warden healer playing with a DK. DKs have a ton of dots just naturally built in. Getting a little off topic here, but just trying to help people understand. Versus say like a D-swinging Stamden, okay? If you're using vines on a D-swinging Stamden, you don't have dots. You're just burst. You're a burst build. So that minor lifesteal is actually not going to benefit you almost at all. It's going to be bad, straight up. Okay, then we got our Mag Betty. You need the Mag Betty. You are spamming Magicka abilities in this build. Our only stam skill is Resolving Vigor. And I've got Healing Thicket on my back bar. I got this just because I was playing in a duo with my lovely lady. She was pocket healing me. Wanted to be able to off heal her a little bit better. A great option, offensive option, is Northern Storm. Gives you a ton of damage and major protection while you have it active. And weapon and spell damage by 300 for 30 seconds. So if you can get that going, and get a few kills with it, and maybe like re-roll a Dawnbreaker within the 30 seconds, like your next Dawnbreaker is gonna hit like a fucking truck. My favorite backbar ultimate, which I'm actually gonna slot back right now, is Spell Wall, the Sword and Board ultimate. I mean, you're just blocking for, what is it, 7 seconds, reflect all projectiles. You're getting bow ulted or something stupid, you just pop this shit and you just delete that fucker, you know what I'm saying? So onto our front bar. We're using Lotus Blossom. This is also a flex spot in this build. You could very easily use Camo Hunter. It basically does the same thing. Camo Hunter is redundant with Bird of Prey, however, because they give the same buff. Minor Berserk. You already have Minor Berserk from Bird of Prey just for having it slotted on your bar. Whereas Camo Hunter, you have to hit people from the flank. Camo Hunter is great for bringing Nightblades out of stealth. I cannot stress how many times I've been fighting outnumbered and there's a little fucking rat that goes invisible and I can't find him because I don't have Camo Hunter. But the reason I use Lotus Blossom, this skill is pretty crazy. It costs next to fucking nothing. It costs 1300 mag, okay? 1350 mag. Heals you when you light attack. Heals you for even more when you heavy attack. And you gain Major, Prophecy, and Savagery. This is crit chance. This gives it to you on both bars, rather than only having it on your offensive bar with Camo Hunter. Just to demonstrate this, we look at our spell and weapon critical, 37.5% on our front bar. We switch to our back bar, sword and board bar, it's still at 37.5%. Now if we slot Camo Hunter, it's on our front bar. We look at our crit chance on our front bar, ice staff bar, 37.5%, just like normal, right? Then we switch to our sword and board bar, and it's at 25.5%. It's still not bad, but having that crit healing when you're on your back bar is absolutely massive. Not to mention, if you're playing with teammates, you don't have a lot of off healing in this build unless you switch Arctic Blast to Polar Wind, and then you're left ass out without a stun. Your only stun becomes Dawnbreaker, which creates a whole other issue within the build. That's why I went with Arctic Blast. Let's put this Lotus Blossom back on. That's just what I prefer for survivability. What I was saying is, it'll actually heal your teammates every now and then, which will help keep that minor toughness, the extra health percentage from the Warden healing. That way you don't have to specifically target them with your vines. Another upside to using Camo Hunter is you get an additional 3% weapon and spell damage from the Fighter's Guild tree. Where is the Fighter's Guild tree? With the Slayer passive. Increase your weapon and spell damage by 3% for each Fighter's Guild ability slotted. So we're getting that from Dawnbreaker currently. And if we were to slot Camo Hunter, it would be going up to 6% as demonstrated here. Current bonus 6%. So now we see why that's kind of a flex spot. You can play with it how you'd like. Like I said, Camo Hunter is very nice, but the extra survivability from Lotus Blossom when you're outnumbered it's great. It's amazing. You can't go wrong with it. What else do we have to go over, guys? Champion points? Don't know if I missed anything here. Yeah, I missed the entire front skill bar. I only went over Lotus Blossom. That's fucking crazy. Lotus Blossom, that's our flex spot. Deep Fissure. This is going to be our delayed burst ability, as well as our armor debuff for the enemy. As you can see, it applies major and minor breach. You want to make sure you're using this Magmorph, not Subterranean Assault. Subterranean Assault is ass. Ideally, how you want to... We'll go over the combo in a little bit. Let me slow down. Frost Reach. This is our spammable, our main spammable. We're using this to proc our Master's Ice Staff. As you can see, it does a flat amount of frost damage, direct damage, and it has a frost damage over time, which will for sure keep Brittle procced on them. Enemies hit by the initial hit are afflicted with the chilled status effect. This is instant chilled, instant minor brittle. I don't know the science behind the cooldown, how much you can apply it. I'm pretty sure you can just have it applied all the fucking time if you have enough skills doing it. Bird of Prey. This is a Animal Companion's ability. It will give you more critical damage on your front bar via Warden passives. I do want to make sure y'all are aware of that. Advanced Species, increase your critical damage by 4% for each Animal Companion ability slotted. Current bonus 12% additional crit damage. That's how we're able to pump it so high. We've got Deep Fissure. We've got our movement ability on our front bar, as well as giving us Minor Berserk, the 5% damage for having it slotted. And it's our immobilization removal. So if you get immobilized and you don't want to have to roll dodge out of it, you could just flap your wings and be gone. Growing Swarm is another Animal Companion's ability. This is a bleed dot. It's a stam skill, and I lied earlier on my backbar when I said Resolving Vigor was our only stam skill. I'm a lying sack of shit. We have 2 of them. We're using this. It's a fat AoE dot. You apply it to one player, it's kind of set and forget. It's just gonna dot the fuck up out of everyone around them. The original enemy will be afflicted by minor vulnerability, taking 5% damage. And everybody else will be taking bleed damage. Now, I believe bleed damage applies hemorrhaging, or has a chance to apply hemorrhaging, which is actually going to remove 10% of the opponent's health bar for a given amount of time. Not entirely sure if this skill procs that. I haven't paid enough attention when I was fighting people, to be honest. They just fucking die. So between... you know, our Frost Reach, our Growing Swarm, as our 2 primary ranged damage over time abilities. Okay? They're dots, and they shred. On top of that, we have, like I mentioned earlier, our double dot poisons. I mean, you see all those orange numbers, the dots ticking on people? Here, I'll demonstrate again with this guy. Apply all my dots. Look at all those fucking dots just slapping this dude up, you know what I mean? I'm not even doing anything, just spammables. So, obviously that's going to be huge. And I forgot to show you guys, buffed up with Wretched Vitality, what the recovery is. With Tri-Stat Food, we're at 1500 mag, 1400 stam, with both Wretched Vitality buffs up. How you want to keep Wretched Vitality up is with Resolving Vigor is going to be a minor. Betty is a free major, and this thing right here, Ice Fortress, is actually both, because you're proccing minor protection and major resolve. So it will proc, as you can see, the golden symbol on my buff bar, that's currently resetting back to 15 every time I cast this. You're going to see both of those reset every time from casting Ice Fortress. If you want an insane amount of recovery, you can totally use Jewels of Misrule or Orzorga's Bear Haunch, just as recovery foods. Your pools will be much smaller, but I've found greater success in being able to have that insane recovery. I mean, your recoveries go to... Let's show this off here. Throw on some jewels. Get in combat with this rat real quick. Proc that up. We're at 1900 mag and 1800 stam. If you pop a pot, I mean, that's just, you know what I mean? It's absurd recovery. It's crazy recovery if you have your recovery food going. And then I got sidetracked again. Dawnbreaker of Smiting. This is kind of also a flex spot. We have a few different options with this build where we can kind of also use Meteor and a different front bar set. I'm sure Meteor will still hit hard with Order's Wrath, but I also have Frostbite readily available. You could use Frostbite instead of Order's Wrath. I just think the Order's Wrath Wretched build is kind of cool because it's 2 craftable sets, right? But with Frostbite, you're, again... It's giving you more % damage. So remember that 12% extra damage with the Ice Staff that the Warden has? Frostbite will increase damage with Frost abilities by 8%. Increase damage done against chilled enemies by 4%. Damage done against enemies with brittle by 2%. 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 2 that's 14% increased damage with certain skills. So if we go back and we look at our Frost Reach, guess what? It's frost damage. Guess what? It applies the chilled status effect every time. So you're going to be getting a full 14% damage buff on this skill with Frostbite equipped. Now, Ice Comet. It's also frost damage. I have never, ever, ever unlocked Ice Comet on any character. So, obviously I don't have it. But the potential of that skill with this spammable is, I mean, it's insane. You can use Arctic Burst, or I'm sorry, Arctic Blast. Right after you cast your meteor, you just walk up to him and then you stay close to him and you'll stun them right when the meteor is about to hit him. As long as you cast it right after you cast your meteor. It's a little bit harder to line up with Deep Fissure. That's why you have to line it up with the second tick of Deep Fissure. The one where it's, so it goes 2, 3, 2, 1, boom, with 5 seconds. This is when you would cast your meteor, you would boom, and you would fucking walk up to him, stun, boom, 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 boom. So that's an option for another huge amount of burst. You could totally have Frostbite on your body. Great set for this application. Oh yeah, my attribute points. 30 into mag, 24 into health, 10 into stam. And lastly, to close it all off, we're gonna look over our champion points here. Green tree, doesn't really fucking matter. You can copy mine if you want. I don't give a shit. It's not necessary. Okay, blue. This one shit starts getting serious. Fighting finesse, increased critical damage and healing. This goes hand in hand with the crit damage that we're building into with this build. Focus mending. This is going to make your resolving vigor, your vines, and your Arctic blast burst heal all hit considerably harder. 10% harder to be exact. We're using Master at Arms for 6% increased direct damage done. This is just going to make the direct damage part of our spammable hit harder, our Deep Fissure hit harder, and most importantly, our Dawnbreaker for those big bursts. And then we have Ironclad. Now, another option for this build, if you're going the Frostbite route and you're not doing Order's Wrath to build crit, you can actually take out Fighting Finesse for this CP called Force of Nature. Now, I tested this, and with the double dot poisons, you're applying 6 status effects to players. So that turns out to be like 3,000 something, 3,600 penetration through this CP. So I kind of just leave that up to you. Fighting Finesse and Force of Nature are interchangeable. Or if you don't care about healing, you can go more damage. But I think when you're fighting outnumbered in Cyrodiil, it is crucial to have these defensive CPs in Ironclad as well as Focus Mending. Those are kind of like a must for me. Red CP, I use the same red CP on every single outnumbered build I make. Without question, no substitutions. Celerity, Survival Instincts. Celerity makes it move faster. Survival Instinct's going to reduce your cost to block, dodge roll, break free, all that fun shit. It's just going to save your ass when it comes to, you know, say you're fighting a DK with an unblockable stun. He's fossilizing you every 6 seconds. That's going to drain the shit out of your stam, and you're going to be thankful that you have this CP. Pain's Refuge. Become tankier the more status effects you have on you. And Fortify. This is how we were able to get above that 30,000 resistance threshold. That's kind of like my minimum resistance threshold for all of my PvP builds. Unless it's like a bomber or something, but if I'm trying to 1vx, 2vx, 3vx, I'm going to be... I don't want to be a liability to my team members. I am going to get 30,000 resistance if it fucking kills me. 30,000 resistance threshold video. I wanted to offer a couple of alternatives for, say if you wanted to duel with this build. It's actually an excellent dueling build. You just need to change a couple things to make it as effective as possible. So the first thing I would do is I would replace this Swift Markyn ring with an infused weapon and spell damage Sea Serpent's Coil. This will give you access to Major Berserk, 10% more damage, as well as Major Courage, which is 430 more weapon and spell damage. This will make you hit considerably harder, and you could probably pressure down any opponent that you're up against.
It's very strong. And then the one thing that I would change in the CP is I would actually switch off celerity. I would switch off celerity to a very cheese dueling CP called Bracing Anchor. While in combat, increase the amount of damage you can block by 20%, reduces your movement speed by 16% at all stages. So you're basically losing all of your movement, but you are in a dueling situation in a confined space. So this is actually ideal. You're able to block 20% more damage. You get reduced block costs with both your sword and shield and your ice staff. So you can block on either bar and block massive amounts of damage in a 1v1.
And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. It's my first build video. Hopefully I'll be able to improve on the structure of these next time. I did this whole thing just off the top of my head, no notes, just kind of doing a live commentary. Try not to fuck up. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy the build. Try it out. Hope to see y'all in there on some Magdans.